welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Constantin Morun. He is a holistic life empowerment mentor, and he is also a podcast host. So welcome to the show, Constantin.
Thank you so much, Ajay. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you to the audience for tuning in.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India. And I'm sure not just in India, but across the world, a lot of people will benefit about what we are going to talk about. We are going to talk about the incredible power of self-discovery with you. So straight to the first question, Constantin, is that, what exactly is self-discovery? Don't we know each other ourselves enough?
Ajay, that's such a great question. Actually, we do know ourselves well enough. But what happens most of the time is that we don't take the time to listen to ourselves, to look inside for those answers that we know we have. So to me, self-discovery is that process of stopping to look externally and look inwards for things that may not be going well in your life, for things that you wish were different, for things that you wish you could do. Because all the time we consume so much information these days. There's so much information in podcasts, in videos, in media, in social media, that we get overwhelmed and then get distracted very easily. And then we don't spend time to say, hey, what does Constantine feel right now? Should he spend maybe a bit of time and look at his emotions? Maybe spend a bit of time and practice some self-love, which is something that in the past I never thought that would be something I would do. Like looking at myself with compassion, looking at myself with empathy and saying, you know what, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to stumble. Let's learn from them and move on.
Right. So what are the tools of self-discovery if somebody were to discover himself or herself?
Oh, there's so many tools out there. One thing I want to preface right away, Ajay, because it's such a great question. There is no such thing as a magical set of tools that will work for every single person. There are hundreds upon hundreds of tools, and your tool set will be unique. So what my recommendation always is try different tools and see what works for you. Pick those that work and keep them in your life and toss the rest out. It's this idea of fail fast. Try something, doesn't work, move on to the next thing. And it's okay to come back and try it again in, let's say, a few months or a few years when you've made certain progress in your life. Now, some of these tools that work for me are meditation. I'm sure your audience is very familiar with meditation. But what I came to understand later in my life is that meditation actually looks very different for many people. There are formal ways of meditating, and those are all amazing. But at the same time, you need to find what works for you. So the idea of meditation, for me at least, is that I put all distractions down. I might go on a walk with my dogs, I go in nature, and I meditate while I walk, or maybe I sit on a bench. And what that means is I'm allowing my thoughts to just go through without me picking any specific thoughts, acknowledging that they're coming through, but not entertaining them. Same thing can happen if you meditate, and let's say you sit down on a chair, sit down on the ground, sit down on the couch. And what that will allow you to do is the more you practice it, the more you will allow things to come up that you otherwise would not have access to because you're always distracted, you're always busy. So what happened to me when I started doing this self-discovery, it wasn't easy at first because there were emotions from my childhood, from my earlier years in life, that were suppressed. And whenever they would come up, I wouldn't like to feel that way, so I would push them down. But by not allowing those emotions to come up, what I was doing is I was just creating a bigger and bigger volcano that when it erupted, I would be angry, I would be mad, I would be snappy at people in my life, and that's something I didn't like doing. Now, that's one of many tools. Another one I'll mention before I'll pass it back to you, Ajay, that really, really works for me is this idea of checking in with myself. So let's say I'm going through the motions, I'm working, maybe I get a bit angry, maybe I get a bit tired, cranky, you name it. I then take a break, and for 10 minutes, I talk to myself from the heart. And that's going to feel very weird at the beginning because I was the same. I'm like, what's going on? Why am I talking to myself? But it's the idea of expressing again what you're feeling. Oh, I'm feeling tired. Why am I feeling tired? Or, oh, I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling angry. And you can dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And a great example of that for me, reinforcing how powerful this is, was about a month ago. I had a rough day. I didn't feel well mentally. Sat down on the couch, and it was hard for me to get up. After an hour, I said, you know what, that's enough. I'm going to do something about it. I came to my office, closed the door, sat down, and started talking to myself. And within 10 minutes, those feelings of dread, those feelings of unease were gone. And I remember sitting in my chair and I'm like, how does this work? I literally just talked to myself for 10 minutes. And now I feel so much better because I understand why those emotions are there. So I could now work on it. So that's the power of self-discovery, because you now understand what makes you you and what triggers you, maybe what gets you upset, what gets you happy, and you can start doing something about it.
Right, Constantin. So, firstly, let's understand it from the benefit point of view, and then I'll come to the other questions. Is that you talk about that self-discovery can unlock the keys to personal and professional success. How
Yes,
does that work for people? People understand benefits better. So let's try and
exactly.
tackle this subject through benefits.
I love that question, Ajay. I love it. And in my professional life, I work in the tech industry. I work for Microsoft, big corporation. I have an important job, like many people do. And I've always wondered, if I start doing more work on myself, how is that going to benefit me in my professional life? Because in my personal life, it might be a bit more obvious, right? I'm maybe a better partner. I'm maybe a better friend. I have maybe better days. But how does it relate to my professional life? So to answer your question in the benefits, first of all, for me, I found more joy and happiness in everything I do. Because if I look inwards and I find who the real Constantine is under all the layers that society put on us, by choice or otherwise, let's say schooling, teachers, parents, caregivers, you name it, we find who the true person is, which means that we can do more of the things that bring us joy and less of the things that don't bring us joy. So that means that makes you a better person to be around, right? Because if I'm happier, if I have a smile on my face always, you're likely going to want to be around me. That means in the professional setting as well, right? Because if I show up to meetings and I'm always cranky and I'm always maybe down and upset and I always focus on the negatives, people won't want to spend time with me unless they have to. Same with personal life. Another big one for me, there was a huge lesson I had to learn the hard way, is to be vulnerable and authentic. Meaning that in my professional life, I used to be different than I used to be in my personal life. And as you can tell from us having this conversation, I'm usually a very bubbly person. I like to smile. I like to crack a joke. I like to just be me. But in my professional setting, I didn't allow for that because I was afraid people would judge me. I was afraid I wouldn't be accepted for who I am. So by discovering and going deeper into what I want to do, how I want to do it, I allowed my true self to come out, and now my relationships at work are much better, more authentic. Because what I've realized is when you become authentic and vulnerable, like 100%, as close to 100% as you can get, people will relate to you a lot more. And we know that in life, relationships are extremely important, be it a professional setting or your personal life. So by doing the work inwards, you become a person that everyone else will want to be around, and others will want to learn from you. So what I've understood is also that the more I look inwards, the more I learn to love myself for who I am and all the parts, the more I can give out as well. So I can show up with more compassion. I can show up with more empathy. I can show up and support someone in need. And again, that's in the professional life as much as in the personal life.
Right, Constantin. Well explained. Now, is self-discovery for everyone? Because if you come to know about yourself, then you will not perhaps be the same person. How does it work? And especially, in professional life, suppose if I discovered that, listen, I'm such an independent spirit, but here I am caught in a very bad job, very bad situation, bad manager, bad boss. I should move away immediately. That feeling will ache you want to move out, whereas the market conditions may not be supportive of that. How does that part of self-discovery work for people?
Oh, what an amazing question, Ajay. I love that. I love that. And I would say yes, because at the end of the day, I'll ask this question. If you don't spend time to understand yourself and to love yourself, who will? It's likely that no one else will. And at the same time, if it's like, why should I spend time externally to learn about others when I don't even know who I truly am? And oftentimes, what we do, and don't get me wrong, I turned 40 this year, and I've done this all my life up to, let's say, last few years ago, is seek validation externally, seek to please people, seek to be part of groups, be it professional or personal, that I didn't necessarily believe in, but I didn't want to be alone. I didn't want to risk, like you said, in these job markets to go jump for something else or look for something else in my personal life, like different groups of people that maybe align better with my values and what I want in life. Now, the second part to your question, it will bring up things that you no longer want to have in your life. But isn't that the beauty of it? Because if now I realize, you know what, this job I'm in is very toxic. It makes me anxious. It makes me depressed. It makes me so that I'm not myself in my personal life and my professional life. Well, I would call it a very good thing. And now you have a choice. Do you want to stay in the same environment and you're going to have the same results, which means you're going to continue to be anxious, you're going to continue to suffer, or you can make a choice to look for something better. That doesn't mean you have to throw your job away the moment you realize that, but now you're conscious about it, now you're aware of it, which means you can take steps to put yourself on a better path. And what I've come to realize is that once you truly understand yourself and believe in yourself, things will line up. I know it sounds crazy, but try it. Doesn't necessarily have to be with something big as a job, but try other things in your life, like relationships and people. And the more you work on yourself, the more you unleash the person that's sometimes hidden within us, your true, authentic self, the more people, resources will line up with you. And you may have heard it as the law of attraction or manifestation. I shouldn't say sometimes, I believe in that, but I don't believe in it in the sense that I'm going to sit on my couch and I'm going to get this amazing job or I'm going to get this amazing family. The way I see it and the way we just talked about is if I work on myself, that means I'm increasing my chances to be put on a path that's going to lead me to what I want, which is what I want to attract, what I want to create in my life. And that's really what this comes down to. So with the jobs, if you realize you're in a job that you don't like, first of all, the truth is somewhere in the middle, meaning that, yes, it could be the manager, it could be the company, but you have a part to play in it as well. And when I realized that, I said I can make changes on my end. And while it may not make the job perfect, it may improve it slightly while I increase my skills or while I job search for something else.
Right, Constantin. Well explained again. So now the question comes is, how can a person get started? And secondly, within this, where it comes the role of the holistic life empowerment mentor that you are. Help us understand these two things together so that people understand it almost like a step by step.
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions there again. So I'll start with the second question first. I say I'm a holistic life empowerment mentor because I help people through my podcast, through the content I put out, but also one-on-one and one-to-many conversations. This is done, without any cost right now, just conversations with people and helping them in my professional life and personal life. And that hence the mentor part, because I'm someone that's going through elements right now in my life. And I'm saying, hey, this has worked for me. This is what I realized. Here's how I can help you. And what I like to do as part of any client I put out is to challenge your thought process, Ajay. So if you come to me and say, well, I don't think this is going to work, let's dive deeper and say, why is it not going to work? Do you have proof against it that says maybe it will work? And so, for example, when I started my podcast, I had doubts in my mind, such as, who am I to have a podcast? Why would people listen to me? And these are thoughts that people have throughout their life. Like maybe when they want to apply for a better job, they could be saying, oh, but I don't have the right degree, or I don't have the right experience, or why would they hire me because I'm this background, or I'm this, I'm a female or a male in whatever industry. And those are limiting beliefs that our brain puts in that we can challenge. So when we challenge, we can get ahead of it, because now we can allow for the alternative to possibly be true. So as a mentor, my job, and anyone else that calls themselves a mentor or even a coach, is not to give you the answers, but to guide you to get your own answers. And I do that by challenging you and challenging your thought process, and also sharing what has worked for me and for others. And as I mentioned earlier in the conversation, there is no magic pill. Unlike what social media and media likes you to believe, there's no magical pill that you can take and it will make you smarter, prettier, more successful, you name it, right? There's no such thing. But there is a thing called working hard, but not to the point where you exhaust yourself. It's working on yourself first, and then things will line up. So that's around the mentorship component, right? How do you get started? Well, first of all, you got started by listening to this conversation, because now maybe I challenge some of your beliefs, and you can take a step and say, okay, do I want to dig deeper? Do I want to maybe look up meditation? Maybe start talking to myself a bit and see what comes up? Do I want to reach out to a therapist, a mentor, a coach, and start working with them? I would say the easiest place where people can start is by simply putting distractions down for maybe 5 minutes a day and trying to do some form of meditation for a week and see what comes up. And that's the challenge a really good mentor of mine gave me many years ago when I was very resistant. I was like, no, I don't have time for meditation. I don't have time for myself. And he said, okay, just take 5 minutes. You'll find 5 minutes, maybe in the shower, maybe when you wake up, maybe before you go to bed. And those 5 minutes after 7 days turned into 15 minutes, eventually into 45 minutes. And now I spend close to 2 to 3 hours a day for myself. It could be walking in nature, it could be meditating, it could be doing different other practices. And I have lots I do, and I rotate between.
Right, Constantin. Again, well explained. Now, let's try and understand the relationship between technology and self-discovery. You are with Microsoft, technology strategist with Microsoft, okay? And self-discovery is a bit more towards the spiritual side. A lot of people go try and search those answers on ChatGPT and GPT-4 and the likes. But how does it work with you? People think, we are tech people, we are modern people, advanced people, not just tech or in any other modern way people look at. And many believe that it is not required to look inward. It is always, you get as much of data, do the data crunching, and it will give you answers. What would you like to tell people who are a bit more modern and do not want to delve into themselves, but delve into big data or any sort of data?
Yeah. Love that, Ajay. Love that. You have some amazing questions. And listen, I was there myself, right? I have a mathematics degree, computer science degree, right? That's my background. I've always been someone fascinated by science, technology, and been in this field for decades. And I've always been someone that also looked for proof in everything I do. And what I started to realize is that if you look, you will find proof that meditation works, that practicing gratitude, which is something I do every day, really has benefits in your life. And you can start looking up research papers. You can start looking at scientific papers. If you're someone that needs proof before you can do something, you can start by doing those things. And again, don't take someone else's word for it. You can go on Google, you can ask ChatGPT and confirm that the research is real, and you can look into it. So what we were talking earlier about my role at Microsoft and how it changed me as a person by going on this journey, it's the same thing I tell people in the tech world. You want to become a better colleague? Do you want to be someone that fosters amazing relationships in the workplace? Well, you need to work on yourself then, because that's how you attract more people in your life, and that's how you become someone that people want to be around, if they need to or if they don't. That's the key, right? Because if, let's say, Ajay, you and I work on a project, we may have to work together, and I have no choice. But projects end, right? So how do I want to be seen after a project is ended? Maybe someone that's going to be thought of when a new opportunity comes up. So let's say, Ajay, you move on to your new role, and then a good position opens up, and he's like, oh, you know what, Constantine, I really like working with him. Maybe he would be good for this. So all of a sudden, it doesn't matter if you're techie or not, doesn't matter what industry you work in. By being a better version of yourself, you open so many doors that otherwise you would never have available. So that's why I always, when I talk to techie people at Microsoft or otherwise, I always say the same thing. It's like, why would you not want to work on yourself? Why would you always want others to tell you what to do? To look at the data outside of you and never the data inside of you. Because if you look at organizations, if there's a problem, and there's always problems, right? They look at the data of the organization and don't say, well, what does Google do? Or what does Amazon do? Right? We always look at the data for the organization, for the department, for the group. And it's the same for us human beings. When you take it at the individual level, well, same thing, right? Let's look at our data. What's our data? Our emotions, our mental state, our spiritual state, our physical state. Those are the four pillars I talk about a lot, and I try to balance as much as I can. And in my case, for example, the physical pillar is the one that I maybe ignored more than I should have in the last few years to focus on my career or other parts of my life. And I realized that by doing so, I'm actually causing harm in the other pillars, right? So my emotional state is not as good, my mental state is not as sharp, maybe I require more sleep, or I don't get as rested, right? So there's all these things where if you're not aligned across all four the way I see it now, is that you can become the best version of yourself. And it doesn't matter, again, if you work in tech or otherwise.
Well answered, Constantine. Some were very difficult questions, the answers to which only a very mature person, somebody who has understood his topic very well, can answer, because it will differ from person to person, but some of the basics remain the same. You answered them very well. This is one podcast, half an hour show. There is so much to still learn from you, Constantine, and that is where your podcast comes in. Unleash thyself. So help us understand about that podcast so that people can listen and understand more about this topic straight away from you. And secondly, how can people connect with you, a holistic life empowerment mentor, so that they find themselves their best version for themselves? How does
Yeah.
that connection happen? What is the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, the best way to connect with me, Ajay, is through my LinkedIn, Constantin Morun, Morun. You'll find me there. I'm happy to talk to anyone that wants to talk either technology or personal development, self-discovery. Happy to chat. If you go to my website, unleashthyself.com, or you can find the Unleash Thyself podcast everywhere where podcasts are streamed, and of course on YouTube. We have lots of videos going out. And what I do is, besides my professional job, I like to put out content that's inspirational, motivational, but also explains my view of the world, my view of myself, and the path that we are all on. And we all have unique journeys in our life. And that's the beautiful part. But we're also in this together. So the way I see it is that, yes, Ajay, you can be on your own journey, I can be on mine, but we can really become the best versions of ourselves by working together. So as I go on my path, I share with others. So as I share with others, they go on their paths and they share with others around them. All of a sudden, you have this ripple effect where the world becomes a better place. And when I say the world, it starts with your world first, and then it propagates to everyone else around you. Now, the podcast. The themes of the podcast are self-discovery and personal development. We cover the four pillars, as I mentioned, which is mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And we have guests on twice a week that are there to tell us their inspirational stories, how they overcome some really, really tough challenges, and how they help others overcome them. And the goal there is simply to inspire and empower you on this journey. Realize that, again, you're not alone and you can make it happen. And the power resides within you, because no one is going to come save you outside of yourself. So you have the power to save yourself. So if you're in a spot you don't like to be in, you have a choice. Do you stay there or do you move on?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have the power to save yourself. You can travel all through the world, but there is no better than traveling within yourself and discovering yourself. Nothing less, nothing more, nothing more powerful than the power of self-discovery. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.